Clap.
Tell us when we're, rolling.
You're rolling.
Oh, so can I see us now?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, hi. Hi, everybody.
Hello. Welcome, travelers. Please let us know in the chat if you can see and hear us, just real quick to make sure that this is all working. Welcome. I am Noah Symes. You may know me as Peter Nureyev, as Lord Aram, as that guy who sometimes talks to these ones. I am here with the two co-creators of the Penumbra podcast, Sophie Kaner.
Hi.
And Kevin Vibert.
Hey.
Good. I'm seeing that you are actually listening to what I'm saying, which is great. So welcome. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good night, depending on where you are in the world, because time as we measure it is a human construct. I want to thank all of our patrons, and especially our $30 patrons, which we will pull up and thank you individually in just a moment. But in the meantime, I also think, Sophie, you wanted to mention one more Patreon reward.
We have one more Patreon reward that should be dropping in 10 minutes, I think. And it is one more blooper reel. And the way that I divided up the blooper reels was I had one regular and one with Stefano Purdy. So all of the extra bloopers that you're going to get soon released to the Patreon page are just things that Stefano were in because he's so funny. And if you don't remember the actor's name, he plays Mick Mercury and Sir Mark, and his bloopers are just so.
I have recorded with him. I can attest to the fact that there is a lot of material there.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So enjoy.
And Kevin, would you like to?
Yeah, technically, our $30 tier says that the conductor is going to personally thank you by name. So, I'm going to do that.
So, do we get to watch the transformation?
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Look,
Amazing.
I'm a different person now.
Wow.
Look, I'm a different person. We want to thank, we would like to thank all of our $30 patrons, including Minchowski, Sophia Anderson, Kim Dauber, Ota Arcana, Garrett M., Jay Yanizelli, Karen Z.H., Reagan, Kim Zygan, and Jamie Gunter for their incredibly generous contributions per episode. Thank you.
And whenever you want to send Kevin back to us, we can get started with the...
No, I've taken over. I am
great.
the writer man now.
Welcome. We have Sophie Kaner and the conductor here with us today. So to get us started, I want to ask you all a question of mine. Mostly because, this last season was a very long season. And I know that I am just as aware of that as you are, but was it always intended to be this long? I know the answer to that one. If not, how did that come about? What changed over the course of creating the season that meant that this season was actually going to be 2 years in the making?
Whew. That's a good question. Do you remember?
Well, I think that part of it has to do with the fact that, in season 2 is when Second Citadel really expanded.
Right.
To become its own thing, and then that had a lot to do with dictating the length of the season and pushing things out. And that being said, also it's we're calling it season 2, but it really was just 2 seasons. We took a hiatus. There was a conclusion at the end of the first half, and I kind of think that part of the reason why we just called it one full season is just because. Even though, Juno, by the end of the first half, had sort of come to a reasonable arc ending, Second Citadel was just, in the middle of a storyline.
Right. Lady of the Lake wouldn't really have worked as a season finale.
Right. And so we were like, meh, we were just taking a hiatus in the middle, and we didn't really call it. But it was a little artificial, in a way.
Yeah, it was really. I think we really just wanted to be able to say this is all one story arc, right?
Mhm.
So even though the first half of season 2 for Juno is really the Pilot Pereira adventures, and the second half is more Ramses and Newtown focused. I like being able to say this is all one story altogether.
Right. So I would like to invite folks to start asking questions in the chat. Be aware that I'll only be able to see the most recent things in the chat. So if there are 17 questions that come in, I'll only see the most recent ones. So we have some time. We can spread them out a little. But as people start to ask questions, I'm going to force you to do a difficult task, which is pick a favorite moment or aspect of this past season.
Moment or aspect?
I'm still really, really fond of the end of Promised Land.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah. I mean, and it was cool because, we hadn't really figured out the whole Pilot Pereira stuff when we started the season, really, at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that sort of expanded itself and then became its whole own storyline. But I got so attached to it, and then just, the way that half season ended in that weird place of him walking out to the desert, I found satisfying in an unsatisfying way.
Right, for an audio medium, that is visually a stunning image, right?
Yeah. No, I can always picture it really strongly,
Yeah.
for sure.
I really like that part, but I'm not going to steal it.
Don't.
Probably my favorite. It's hard to pick one, but if we're talking about a thing, I'll put it as a thing that I really liked to get the opportunity to write. Where is Jack Tacano in Long Way Home?
Ooh, yeah.
That, mini
Questions unanswered.
Questions unanswered. That mini documentary I loved. Those
Yes.
of you who have access to the Case Files of Juno Steel, Traveler's Guide to the Second Citadel stuff, know that I have an unhealthy fixation with in-world real documents, and being able to let that bleed over in the show finally and just say, now I'm going to write a real documentary that has very few people we even know in it, but it is relevant, I swear.
Right.
That was great. I absolutely loved that. And figuring out how to tell a story through portions of that was so
Yeah, and it was really fun to put together.
Yeah.
Weird to record because everyone sort of recorded separately.
Right. Well, right, because when you're making an audio work of an audio work, you can kind of get away with
Right.
jankiness.
Right. And then, for a Long Way Home, Joshua sort of recorded his stuff, all by himself for most of it. Yeah.
Well, I have some questions coming in. Thank you. So the first question is the Penumbra going to take a different shape in Season 3? I believe we're referring to not the podcast, but the Hotel Come Train.
Mm.
Things are definitely going to shift there. That is something that we've been discussing and we haven't come into any final conclusions about.
Because luckily for us, it doesn't really affect anything else.
Right.
We can just decide that.
But it sounds safe to say
It won't be the same.
it won't be the same.
Yeah. Exactly.
Some shift will
Yeah,
occur.
good
All right.
question.
Excuse me. The next question here is, what was the hardest episode this season to write? And or which was the most fun to write? I understand those may or may not be the same.
That's a really good
That
question.
is a really good question.
The thing is, though, I don't know if we want to focus more on the latter half of the season, because we've already talked
Sure, yeah.
elsewhere about
Yeah.
the first half.
Moonlit Hermit is in the latter half, isn't it?
Is it? Guys, help.
Yes, he said.
My God, that was
Is that the
Question.
first? Is that the first, second Citadel?
It is.
of
Hey,
the second.
Yeah, someone tell us if we're
Does
right.
anyone know?
What is the order of our episodes?
so a minute ago we did the whole like very like nice this is an intro thing. Haha, wasn't the season so long? But wasn't the season so
Oh my
long?
God.
Well, right.
We've lost track of everything.
I either recorded Moonlit Hermit a little under a year ago or a little under 2 years ago.
Uh-huh.
Couldn't tell you which.
I wrote Moonlit Hermit when I was a much younger man.
Yeah. Oh my God, we've aged so much.
Anyway, the answer is Moonlit Hermit. Moonlit Hermit tried to kill me many times.
Yeah, I know.
There were other episodes that were tough. Like Monsters Reflection was really hard emotionally. And the Battle at World's End, the second Citadel finale, was just like that was a whole
Logistically.
that was logistically and even from on the script writing ends, like trying to make sure that everybody got enough of a moment in the spotlight.
Right.
And after a certain point, that felt more like a sliding puzzle than actually like
Plus,
writing
we were
the script.
so rushed by that point.
We were rushed and we were very, very tired.
Yeah.
But Moonlit Hermit is still the only one in the second half of the season that I wrote basically 5 episodes for that like never made it onto the actual feed.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like Angel of Brahma.
Yep.
But there was like so many different versions.
Angel of Brahma and weirdly Lesson Learned, which like
Oh yeah.
which fits in that club bizarrely, but Lesson
Right.
Learned
Right, you wouldn't think it would take that
Right.
many iterations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it did.
Yeah.
So many mannequins though every time.
Yeah. We
That was
knew
the constant.
The one constant, mannequins. Yes.
But there was another part of the question, which was what was fun.
Oh, most fun to write, yes.
is this me?
Well, I mean, you wrote it.
That's true. That's true. Oh my god. Sportive Nymphs.
Mm.
Every stage of putting together Sportive Nymphs was a delight.
Yes.
From planning it with Sophie when we were going around on like very long train rides in Paris.
Yes, we were in Paris
Yeah.
when we did that.
And all the weird ideas we knocked around. Like I remember there was one about like score would be measured by whichever team was winning, like a tree on their
Yeah, they were
side
gonna have like a
would
magical
grow
tree.
more.
Something.
Sure,
Yeah.
Yeah.
We would have sold it.
Absolutely.
It would have been very.
You would have loved it.
You're in so much trouble. Oh,
Okay.
I know, you don't care.
Sorry, just real quick, as I expected, I'm sort of scrolling back and forth trying to get questions that have already gone and check out what people are saying right now. So if I miss a question, apologies, but I'm going to do my best to keep going through here.
You can always ask it again.
Of course, yes. That is an option available to you. Do you have any idea of the characters that will meet in Season 3? And the second half of the question is, do you think we'll like them?
That's so
Which is
awesome.
a fair question, yeah.
That's so awesome.
Season 3 is turds only. 100% year-long turd party. Nobody here is fun.
Gross.
Ew.
We have a lot of ideas. We have ideas about recurring like characters who are popping up from the past.
Yeah. I would say we know more about specifically what's going to happen in Juno,
Yes.
but we actually know more about the characters
Yeah.
who are going to be in
Mm-hmm.
Second Citadel.
There's a very important and also brand new character who's going to come up in Second Citadel next season, who I'm extremely confident that everybody is going to like. Yeah.
I can't believe you
Set
just
the
said
bar
that.
super high,
Oh my
nowhere to go but up.
goodness.
Yeah.
It's okay because we're gonna have more than one recurring character.
It's whichever one they like the best. Yeah.
Exactly, right?
Here's a really good one. Where did the idea for Angela's hup 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 running come from?
Aww.
That came just from Emery. That from sorry, that's his nickname. From M. Sutherland.
Yeah. He just did it, I think.
Yeah.
Just in recording.
In recording.
Yeah.
He just I think he prefaced it a little bit. And it was just
Did he get it from somewhere? I think he did.
Yes,
He's like imitating something, and I don't remember
Yeah.
what. But he just did it. We were like, I think I probably said, something dumb like, oh, make a noise like you're running. And I think he hupped, and we loved it so much. And then Kevin started writing it into the scripts.
Yeah.
It is obviously a delight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the best.
Here's a good process question. About how long on average does it take from the initial writing of the script to recording and from recording to release?
Oh boy.
So, like, there's an
Take it away!
there's an optimal answer. There's an answer that you get at the beginning of a season.
Yes.
And then there is a yikes answer that you get at the end of a season. Because the whole process, like, shrinks as it goes, as we get, like, more and more down to
Yeah.
the wire. So, like, going into season 3, we're really, really going to try not to let that happen because it takes such a toll on everybody.
Yeah. So I think that, like, if you totally break it down, I wish I had a whiteboard. Being a teacher is ruined.
I don't wish that.
I'm happy we don't. Yeah.
If you totally break down the process, right? We start off with, like, outlining the whole season. That's like that for both of them, right? And then for Sophie and I will outline an episode, and then I'll do the drafting and etc. So it's a bunch of different stages. I'll speak that for the outlining, that's usually like you and I need to have a couple hours sitting down, and also we need to redo it eventually.
Right. And like sometimes it goes well and we come up with an outline. Sometimes we have to like
just do it again.
Come back to it because it's not working.
And then for the drafting, I just finished a draft of a season 3 episode the other day.
Woo!
And that took about 4 days to get a draft of the episode. However, again, like a Moonlit Hermit took about 4 months to get a draft of an episode.
A draft. Right, because didn't the whole process of like beginning to end of writing that script take many months?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And same with Angel of Braun and everything.
Yep. So the thing is that, like, a lot of what happened toward the end of this season is that things just got very collapsed because the scripts were taking longer than they should, honestly, because I was extremely busy and they were just hard. So that ideally it would be about a week for a script, and the ideal or about a week for a draft, and the ideal doesn't like to exist super consistently.
Well, I mean, and of course the other thing that happens near the end of a season is that you become responsible for tying up all of the loose plot threads.
Oh, God, yeah.
You know, and so like in the beginning, you can get away with like, okay, I wrote this thing in a weekend because like the world is your oyster, right? But then like by the end, it's like, oh my gosh, we have to make sure that we bring everything back in, and like everything that we set up has to come to a satisfying conclusion, so it takes longer and longer.
Right.
And then from there, like, you know, it might be really easy to schedule and like get people in to record and stuff, you know, if it's not too many people.
Mm-hmm.
But then, you know, you get to a battle at World's End and like Noah's tearing out his hair.
Right, this is
so
just
mad.
Just to be clear, I have been doing all of the scheduling of recordings.
I love you so much.
And so when these two hand me on a platter an episode with, I think, 14 actors total, that's fun for me.
Yeah, that's upsetting.
Because they're also all living their lives,
right?
And we have to, you know,
and like they live in all different places, and they all have full-time jobs, and then the studio only has the capacity for so many people, so then it's like, you know, there's this like triage situation.
This
like,
is worth it. Yeah, if you go back and listen again to the last couple episodes of Second Citadel this season, if there's ever a scene with more than 4 people in it, which there are several times.
Yeah, they were not.
Be aware that those were recorded in 2 different groups who didn't even see each other that week.
At least. And sometimes there's like 3 different groups like all spliced together.
And so listen to that and then just silently congratulate Sophie on piecing that all together. Feel free to do that at any time.
Or loudly. And then the sound design part of it, that is actually easier to answer because at a certain point I just sort of gave myself, like, it was like, okay, I get 2 weeks to sound design. an episode, and that's how long it takes me. And like I have gotten faster over time, but I've also gotten like way more intense about it over time, so it still takes me that amount of time. Except when we got to Battle at World's End, because I had the worst idea in the world, which was to do shorter episodes that we would release weekly. I have many regrets.
Equal amount of work,
I have
right?
many
Totally
regrets.
equivalent. Yeah.
I told everyone and myself that it would be an equivalent amount of work, and it was so much more. And
It
so
was an
then,
experiment.
Yeah, and it was
We
a
learned.
failed
Yeah,
one.
we learned
but
something.
We learned. And
we
so
hope you liked it because it's not happening again.
yes, it was a very bad idea. But in that case, I didn't have 2 weeks to do episodes. I had 1 week because, like, as an episode was coming out, we would just have finished recording, hopefully, and I would have that 1 week to do the whole thing. It was awful. Awful.
Here's one. Where did the idea of the rabbits come from?
The sewer rabbits?
Yes,
Those are the only rabbits on the
those
show.
are the only rabbits on the
Yeah.
show.
I know. I just,
Also, if there were others, they'd be the most memorable
That's
rabbits
true.
on the show.
I just got so excited about them.
They
I
date
just
all the
lit
way.
right up.
They date all the way back to the original Murder's Nest.
They do date all the way back to the original Murder.
Oh, that's right. It was a throwaway line, wasn't it?
It is. So that was a. That's kind of a. I feel like that's kind of a holdover of what my writing style or what my writing process used to be,
Mhm.
which is basically just making throwaway gags and then later on actually needing to deal with it.
But you weren't going to. It was you made the throwaway joke.
Yeah.
And then when we got to Day That Wouldn't Die and they were in the sewers,
Yeah.
it pinged something with me, and I was like, "Wait a minute, Kevin! Didn't you
Yeah.
say that there's rabbits in the sewers? So shouldn't we bring them back?"
Right. Yeah. So what I mean, I should say is that before, like, especially early when we were world building the story,
Mm-hmm.
in the first couple episodes of, honestly, each story, each series, there are a ton of just like jokes just to pepper the world.
Right.
Because it's just this gives you kind of what the world is like. This gives you flavor. It gives you spice. It gives you.
You can stop.
It
at
gives
any-
you spice.
at any moment.
So yeah, they like Mars, like the whole mystery. You know, the detective, the one on Mars. I just kind of threw that in.
Right.
We hadn't discussed that before.
Right. The fact that it was on Mars.
Yeah.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah, no, we were just gonna
Yeah.
do a detective story.
Yeah, and he was like, "Oh, and it's on Mars."
Yeah. So that's weird.
Sure, yeah. And here we are. Someone made a suggestion, which I think is helpful. Going forward, tagging us in your posts that have questions in them, I think would be
That's a very
helpful,
good
just so I can visually catch those. Obviously, I'll be catching up to the point at which you start doing that, but that will be very helpful so that I can sort of scan and find those. Thank you to whoever suggested that. Here's an interesting one. Why does Lord Aram hate being thanked? He has reacted negatively to both Rilla and Damien thanking him, and this person is curious about why that bothers him.
Yeah. Why Noah?
'Cause I'm spiky! Fun fact, am not the character I play, so I'm gonna bat that one back to you.
Do you have a strong gut instinct about this one? Because I feel like I know why, but I'm curious.
Oh, okay. I mean, my guess is, I mean, like, he is spiky though, and like, if you accept thanks for something, that means it's because you did a nice thing for somebody, I feel like. And I feel like he's not about nice.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't want to admit that, like...
Right, or like doing something for another person,
Right.
like involving another person.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So it's for me, it was always like he's never going to admit his feelings about Rilla or Damien, especially early in those stories. So like when he does a nice thing, he doesn't realize that he did it, and when it's called out, he gets all embarrassed about the fact that he did it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of what's happening with Aram is he's very embarrassed all
he
the
is.
time, actually.
He
Yeah.
is.
You know,
Right,
and, like,
and
that's why he
expresses
is so
embarrassment
spiky.
through rage. Yeah.
Right.
Or sometimes, like, aloofness.
Sure.
Right.
Which is definitely a certain type of person, right? It's like they can come across as, like, very intimidating just
Right.
because actually they're shy
And,
or embarrassed.
and also, I think if you are very full of yourself in a certain way, then you are almost never living up to your own standards. So you're pretty much in a constant state of embarrassment, even though you think very highly of yourself.
I lost track of what we
Rough.
were talking about me. this conversation.
I wasn't going to say it, but I was looking deep into your soul while I thought it.
Here is an easy question. Is the soundtrack for season 2 going to be available?
It is, yes. I'm hoping in the next month-ish.
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah.
Don't hold me to that,
Great.
but that's the projection.
Oh, interesting. Do y'all have any plans to introduce younger characters, teen or young adult characters, into the Juno storyline? And how do you think Juno or Nereida would handle being around younger characters? I just watched you both have a whole face journey,
We did.
and I'm fascinated to either find out or not find out what that was about.
No, we don't have plans.
Not for... Yeah.
For that. And I mean, I guess canonically there's been one instance of Yasmin Swift asks Juno, do you have any kids?
Yeah.
And he goes, ooh.
So that would be his reaction to interacting regularly with younger people?
He dealt with small fry, okay.
Yes, but that's different.
I don't know. Small fry is like... I think small fry is about as intelligent as like a 5-year-old.
Yes, speaking as a person who would be thrilled to interact with a small fry, but also if you asked me, do you have kids, I would go, woo, like,
Okay.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll
like
take
they
them
are
both.
different.
I'll take them both. Give me small
A
fry.
kid and, yeah.
Yep.
I don't know about Nureyev, honestly.
No. Yeah. I mean, part of the reason that I think that we've had difficulty having like young adult and little kid characters is that like then you've got to start asking questions about the actors, right? So we have a few actors who do great little kid voices. Kate immediately comes to mind, right? And also you can't ask one actor to be the entire source of an entire age range.
Kate certainly would. Yes.
Right.
Well, we had one.
Also, like, Matthew's kind of holding down the olds at the
Right.
moment.
Exactly. And I also think in general, like, it's easier to imitate old than young.
That is often, well, right, just because of how vocal cords develop, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had the one time we had a kid on the show, and it was my brother when.
That's right.
Yeah, when he
That's
was
right.
when he was littler. I mean, he's. Oh my gosh, he is 14 now. But
That is wild.
yeah.
Here's one. Are you considering a live show or con appearance in Europe in the future? I can answer that. Would love to.
Yeah.
I would say I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Money, but I would say I don't think it's in the budget right now.
All right. So it's not in the budget. Right?
But yes, we would obviously love to come to Europe.
If someone gave us bags of money to do it,
sure,
we
yeah.
would be there.
Or even just the appropriate amount of money. I
Bags.
don't
Right.
care how it's delivered.
Bags.
Yeah.
I prefer
Could be in
bags.
boxes.
I
tote.
honestly, I'd prefer a check.
Was there an intentional parallel between the end of the Juno and Second Citadel Season 2 stories in relation to leaving Hyperion? Was this parallel intentional between leaving Hyperion and the Second Citadel? Am I reading that right?
What do you mean leaving the Second Citadel?
I don't know because I didn't ask the question.
Right, that's
Right.
fair.
But yes, if the person who asked that question would like to clarify, we'll come back around to it. Important question, this person says. What breed of dog is Gawain?
Oh, Leslie has answered this many times.
Yeah.
War pug.
Yep.
And just real quick, for those of us less familiar with, some of the
A pug wearing, like, armor.
Yeah, no, this is not a specific breed of pug.
Right.
Any
Oh,
old-
right, that's, yeah.
Any old pug will do, but you do have to make sure that the pug is wearing
sort of a battle pug.
yeah,
Yes.
I mean, a highly decorative armor and
Okay.
also comfortable.
I think it's
Gotcha.
maybe she, like, Googled this,
Yes.
and it was, yeah, so I bet
If you Google
image
war
search,
pug, you will see
it's
Leslie's...
probably, like, the first, yeah.
Yeah, Leslie does not say Gawain looks like that when she sees this picture.
She's just like, that's
she
Gawain.
points to it and says, that's Gawain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I don't even know what this is talking about, but I hope you do.
Great, thank you.
No, I think you. Question for Kevin: does the Juno finale end on a rhyming couplet on purpose? If so, could you talk a bit about that?
Could you?
Does it end on a rhyming couplet on purpose? That sounds like something I do, but I don't remember.
I'm trying to.
I don't remember the last
Okay,
time.
yeah. I mean, me neither, obviously. But
Wait, the Juno finale?
is it my last line? Am I the last line? He doesn't talk after me? Oh.
Yeah, no, it was a
Yeah.
whole.
Our technician Ryan is nodding his head vigorously as he is caught up today, so he remembers.
Oh, Juno says something about a smile.
Oh, okay.
I didn't mean
The man's
to do
so brilliant he doesn't even know it.
I didn't mean
Yeah.
to do that, but that's a pretty good heroic couplet. That's pretty alright.
How long have you been planning the relationship between Kuan Yi and Sir Caroline?
Oh, that is a good question.
Like, beginning of season 2, I think.
So since before her introduction, then.
Oh my gosh,
absolutely.
since before Lady of the Lake, because we were already seeding it
Mhm.
in Lady of the Lake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say that probably around Treacherous Heart is when we came to the final decision. Because we had a couple different ideas of what
Mhm.
Sir Caroline's private life was going to be like.
Mhm.
But one thing that we were really invested in figuring out was like, so much of Sir Caroline's thing is I have a right to privacy,
Mhm.
which she totally does. And we as the audience want to know more about her.
Right.
So finding a way to be able to learn more about her and get more in her head without, like, while also honoring her privacy has been really, really interesting.
Yeah, so we decided that before Lady of the Lake, what was a later... So we knew that she was going to be in a relationship with a witch.
Yes.
And we, had ideas about the witch. And originally, that was going to be the epilogue. So, that last scene with Caroline and Kuan Yi,
Mm-hmm.
that was going to be when we met Kuan Yi
Mm-hmm.
originally.
I see.
And it was a later decision to bring Kuan Yi in earlier and then
Right.
not say that they were actually in a
Mhm.
relationship. And then have that kind of be more revealed.
We did this multiple times over the course of the season now I forget where I heard this before, but it's like if you're building up to some great big explosive reveal or even just a big turn in character development, instead of saving it for so long, sometimes if you spend it early, then you've got to say, okay, how can we do better than that now, right?
Right.
So
Similar with Sir Mar.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So part of the thing with Kuan Yi was that the whole reveal there was going to be like, haha, Sir Caroline does have friends. Like, she has social relationships. But by that point, she had developed so much that that was totally flat. So bringing in Kuan Yi earlier, so it was a different kind of turn.
Right.
It was something we really needed to do.
I'm so glad we did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, me too. No, it's a great twist. Right? That doesn't. It's not a plot twist. It's more of a character twist. You know, which is interesting. Now that Juno is leaving Mars, will we still see the characters he left behind in season 3 or later?
Yeah, we don't 100% know.
Seems like a big maybe.
Yeah. I will
It's definitely not a no.
Yeah.
I will say I really want to, and that's not a good enough reason.
Right.
So if we get a really good reason, I'll be rooting for it.
Yeah. And it's also it has definitely been interesting in moving through season 2. And I think we've talked about this before, but we did season 1 and it was pretty contained, and then everybody, and then over the hiatus, we and everybody else had only that content to consume, and so all of the characters in season 1 really loomed large,
Mm-hmm.
even though in the grand scheme of things some of them weren't actually that important.
Right.
And so then in season 2, it was really hard to resist the urge to bring them all back because we were so used to them, but they really were not, a lot of them were just not the point of the story. So it seems crazy now, but there was a time when we were like, oh, are we bringing back the Prince of Mars in season 2? But
there were 2 separate episodes that we were going to try to pull together and make work by bringing back the Prince of Mars.
Yeah, and then we were just he's actually not very important, and that's just not what this story is about. Right. So we ended up not. And then, of course, then sometimes, we did, and we had to bring back, Mick and Alessandra and stuff.
Right.
So,
Right.
Maybe.
So, never say never.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Arum says other monsters pay him for his creations. Is that literal? Is there monster money?
Bags.
As of this moment, it's bags.
Bags.
Not of money.
No, just bags.
Bags are money for monsters.
I feel like a caveat we have to give for like world building questions that we have not explicitly discussed before.
Of course.
Is that word of God don't cut it? That ultimately, like, I feel like for questions like this, we can give our gut
What
feeling.
even is
Everything you're... Don't you start with me. Everything you're saying is prefaced with, I like the idea of...
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I like the idea of... if there is monster money, none of them can decide on it.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, because
That
they're
is
also
cute.
they're also heavily individualist. It doesn't make
Right.
any sense to me
Right.
that they would all agree upon one currency.
Right.
So you've got these squirrels in this tree over here who all work with monster francs, and while the golems in like the far north are still trying to make the monster euro work.
Right.
Right. Like none of their currencies work.
Right.
Together.
That's cute. Doesn't really answer the...
That's okay. We can say whatever we want.
They could trade with our...
And we are, like, eons behind the chat here, so don't feel like you have to
Okay.
Fine.
Yes.
do this with
Yes.
your answers.
Sure.
I know
Yeah.
that's how... No, that was not a drag.
Oh.
That's just who all of us are as people.
Yeah.
So, we can feel free to do quick answers like, Sophie, what program do you use to edit the sound?
Audacity.
See? Lovely. Will there ever be a third running storyline in the Penumbra?
That's a great question.
That is a very good question.
Don't know.
Yeah.
Love that. Here. Did you expect the fans' reactions to finding out that the Ruby 7 was green?
Sophie.
I mean,
Why are we dancing?
I don't know. It's what I do. No, because it was always green.
This is my favorite part.
Right.
Like, it wasn't... Okay, the point is, like, at least whether or not we had mentioned it before. I mean, no, we had not mentioned it, although it is on the poster.
If you go back to the Angela Brahma poster and you're on like a bad CSI NCIS show and you just look at it and you say, zoom in twice, then it will zoom in on the little car, which is totally green.
Yeah, and we talked about it with Michaela, when she was doing that. Like,
Right.
It was decided that it was green. And so, like, in my head, it was always green.
Right, it wasn't a twist.
Right, it wasn't
Yeah,
intended to be a twist. And it also, here's the thing, I do think that, like, we, including myself, have, like, retroactively decided that was, like, a troll thing on my part, but in fact, it was, like, just
Right.
so much more
Uncharacteristically,
Yeah,
it was
just-
actually not.
It was much
yeah.
more wholesome than that. It wasn't like, ha ha ha, we're making it green. It was just like, ha ha, wouldn't that be funny if a car called the Ruby 7 was green?
Yeah.
Like, just because it's a little unexpected.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't meant to be like, gotcha.
Also,
That's
I'm
all.
gonna. This is my own question now. I am positing that maybe it's not lime green.
No,
Thank you.
it's not.
I just wanted
it's
to.
pretty.
There we go. Great.
Beautiful.
I'm very defensive of Peter Narayan's car. It's not my car. I'm a person in the real world.
It's also not.
It's not Peter. Oh man.
It was his for a bit.
Sure.
All right. Have you ever thought about doing a Junoverse episode from someone else's point of view?
Yes.
And I would say, Angela Brahma is a little bit that, right?
Yeah.
It's a cheat to get that at least.
Yep.
So it's not totally outside of the language that
Yeah.
we've created so far. Let's see here. I'm going. Okay, with the acknowledgement, this is a family-friendly podcast.
Great.
If you got one F-bomb per storyline, who would get to say it?
Purse. Oh, okay. Per series.
Sorry, I have to read the rest of this question because it's very
This
good.
is really good.
Who would get to say them, and what episode would Juno drop his?
Wait, like retroactively? Like,
Yeah.
Oh my god. For me, Juno would drop his in Promised Land when he's in like the blood chair and
Oh, that's real, yeah.
he's gonna live.
As would I.
I
Yeah.
would give it to him actually in the beginning of Time Gone By when he's like still
Yeah.
going through the desert and he just like does he just like fall face first?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, Rilla would drop it in Second Citadel 100%.
Oh.
That sounds real, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. This person asked, Jacket was mentioned by his true name way back in Season 1, Episode 15. Good timestamp on that.
Wow.
But we didn't actually meet him until almost 2 years later. How long ago was his identity and involvement planned?
He was so that's another example of like just peppering in details because you need things to fill out the world. And I think that if you're doing good world building, you make sure that any of the background details that you're peppering in could be expanded into something given the right environs, right? So back then we did not know we were ever going to meet Jetsi Kuliak.
Right.
But
You did keep it was something you said all the time.
I kept on bringing it
Yeah.
up largely because I loved that name.
Yeah.
And also because I really, really, really wanted the Ruby 7 to come back. I wanted it so bad. I kept fighting for it. But yeah, so like when we were talking about like moving towards like a group of thieves, it's like I thought it would have a lot more impact if we had a name that we even
was
remotely
recognizable,
recognized.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and certainly, by the time we introduced him as Jacket, we did know who he really was.
Oh, absolutely. By that point, we knew his real name.
Yeah.
Right. Quick one. Who's in the most need of a hug at this point in the stories?
Juno's good.
Yeah, he's like actually doing really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, there goes your front runner. I would argue that Aram needs a hug but won't accept one.
Aram's got 2 people to hug him.
Yeah, but like, will they? I mean, they will. Will he
Will
allow
they?
them?
Yeah.
He will.
Okay, I think that for Second Citadel, Angelo is in the most need of a hug because he's always in desperate need
I
of a
see,
hug.
yeah.
Aww.
Right. And in the Juno series, I think it's probably Vespa. Like,
Yes, I
yeah.
agree.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would be scared.
No, you would get, what's the word? Stabbed.
Right. Oh, here's one for me. How does Noah make the taka 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 noise? I can't do it. Great question. I've never had to describe it before. I think I just make the sounds really fast. I literally don't know.
Oh no, don't make him think about it too much because then he'll lose it.
I'm better at it when I don't think about it.
Yeah, and it's like a fluttering of the
Yeah,
tongue.
it's a fluttering of the
Yeah.
tongue. I go, huh?
Against
And then I...
Yeah. Horrible. Can you do the purring noise that we got at the...
Oh, the purring noise he makes when he kisses.
Yeah.
Can I? What was it?
It was like a... No.
No.
That's fun.
Oh, no, here we go.
Yeah.
I feel like a large moth when I make that sound.
That's part of the description we left out. He is a large moth.
He could be 2 things. Real quick. Sir Angelo is short, yes or no?
No.
No.
Great.
His family is.
Right.
Oh, right. His family is tiny.
Family
Is that
tiny, and he is so tall.
Is that in the episode, or is that just something we decided?
No, it's in the
It's in
episode.
the
Okay, I didn't remember. Yeah. People are just... There's a whole conversation about the ticka 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 that I'm scrolling through here. Are there any current characters, or would you consider in future having characters who are aromantic?
Here's the question.
I mean, yes, there already is.
Right, there's Tal.
Yeah.
Right. I wonder if this person's asking about, like...
Aromantic but not asexual.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
I'm sure, yeah. No specific plans right now, but absolutely.
But yeah, absolutely.
Oh my god, now it's just... I mean, I know for you all this was like many, many minutes ago, but I'm just seeing all down the chat.
Remember how mad you were when I was like, yeah, he makes this noise? You're like, what the hell?
Right, I think my response was, why?
Well, but like the justification, I still really like, right?
Yeah.
It's like in a lot of, I mean, I think in pretty much every language, there are just noises that you make that don't mean anything.
Yeah, like just thinky noises.
Right.
And yeah, so it was I had like a lot of influences for that. And so one is I was thinking just of animal noises, right? Because I wanted him to have some distinct animal characteristics.
Some lizards click.
Yeah, I think there may be a lizard that supposedly makes a noise like that. And then another one was I also wanted it to come across as like a slightly foreign language thing, right? Just like when you hear someone talk in another language and they make noises that are a little unfamiliar to you.
Right.
And I was thinking about, like how like talking to my Japanese family could be off-putting because they'd be like, so, like just in the middle of, right? And that doesn't mean anything. It's just like your thinky noise. And then I also weirdly had in mind, I grew up doing Indian classical dance, and that is how they keep the time, is taka-taka.
Right.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah. That's great. Are there plans to continue experimenting with storytelling devices in Season 3? Yeah. Such as Rita's recorder or the Juno Rita flashbacks?
Yeah.
Definitely.
We get antsy, so like we absolutely have to experiment.
Yeah, and it's something that is like fundamentally important to us.
Yeah.
Is even though it can feel so good to stay with a formula, and it's safe because you know that people like elements of that formula, but we don't want it to become stale, and we want to like push ourselves, and sometimes we're going to do experiments that don't work out so great, like, Battle at World's End, at least on my end, was a failed experiment, like, but it was on purpose, it was to like push us to see if something different would work, and it's really important to us to do that in all respects, artistically, yeah. So like, expect for things to change.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I love about this show and what you guys do with it, is that it's not just that we're telling new stories, about these characters constantly, but that you're trying to do it in new ways.
Yeah.
There's a whole section here of people just babbling about Small Fry. One of them is a question, which is Small Fry okay?
Yeah, I think she's good.
I love that is the one thing you feel comfortable word of godding.
Small Fry is good. I refuse to live in a world where Small Fry ain't good.
Great. Okay, there we are. How many arms is ideal in a partner?
That's very personal and close.
I feel that if you're really in love with someone, you'll grow to love the exact number of arms.
Oh my god, I was sure you were going to say, you will grow the number of arms that they wish you to have. I was positive that's where you were going with the word grow.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Oh boy, okay. Are there any plans to do any more one-shot stories like there were in the first season?
Not plans. I don't think we're opposed to it, but not plans.
Yeah. And that was very exhausting.
It was.
Yeah.
I'm seeing some questions repeated that we already answered, which means I'm very far behind in the chat still. Here we go.
If people are repeating questions, maybe do you want to skip ahead a little bit?
I will do that. Okay. A question about Kevin's process. How do you get in the heads of each character when you're writing them? Do you keep their motivations in mind, or do you just know them well by now? I would say, do you just... I have a guess, is that you also summon up the actors' voices to help you.
I do now.
Yeah.
I do much more now, but I guess that doesn't really answer what to do with brand new characters.
Sure.
Now, right? So it depends. I've definitely gotten better at this since the show started, and I can do it a lot faster now. If a character's voice is really based on another voice, a lot of the times that's where we'll start. So a good example of that is when I was writing Time Gone By,
Mm-hmm.
there were moments where I knew I was really nailing Buddy's voice, but I didn't super know what they were. And we talked about her being Katharine Hepburn,
Katharine
right?
Hepburn, yeah.
So I watched some just monologues by Katharine Hepburn across her movies. There's one from Guess Who's Coming to Dinner that I watched probably 40 times.
She's incredible.
I know.
She is so ridiculous.
And just when I got down the very fast and absolutely biting patter, like I basically just start like thinking in those patterns, and I'd write down what I thought. I think that for me, actually, I'm not a good actor. I'm not an actor on the show, but it's related to acting in a way, because I increasingly am getting to the point where I just like think about the way that they would respond to a situation, the way that they genuinely respond to the situation, and once I get used to their voice, I can I basically just do that imitation to the point where Sophie will mock me mercilessly
Because he makes the faces when he's writing.
Yep.
I can see him like actually acting it out. It's cool.
Don't write very much, but I could not imagine not doing that.
Yeah. There were moments like in a lot of the Aram heavy scenes that I would come out of and like my forehead hurt a little bit because I'd be doing so much like
That is incredible.
Yep.
Are there plans for more and different merch?
Yes.
Yes.
Love that. Here's a good one. Is there anything Kate Jones cannot do?
No.
Mm-mm.
That's what we've discovered. Yeah. I've known her a very long time, and we keep discovering roles she can play on this show. It's amazing.
There is nothing.
Let's see here. I noticed there were what I would think are working titles for episodes in the notes released earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any more of those you want to share?
Oh, good. Oh, no, but there is one in there that I meant to write a note about and then I didn't. So, if you look at those notes I released earlier, you will see that Moonlit Hermit is referred to as Spaghetti Friends. Second Citadel, Spaghetti Friends.
I'm sorry, what?
Sophie and I were trying to remember how this happened. And I eventually realized that like we were also stuck on the title of that one forever. And at some point, I just sent her a long list of titles. And in the middle, because I was losing my mind, I just wrote Spaghetti Friends. And that is what we started calling it.
I was convinced that it was going to be a Lady and the Tramp.
That was his theory.
That was my guess earlier today.
This morning,
So there's Spaghetti Friends. In those notes, you'll see that Long Way Home is Return to Pride Rock.
Right.
Oh, right. Because, like, a lot of those is because, like, when we would outline the full season, we would kind of have a sense of, like, the narrative on a season level. And so those working titles reflected that.
Right. This is the Return to Pride Rock of this season.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there were some that some titles we knew had to happen eventually.
Right.
Like Juno Steel and the Man of the Future. I knew that had to be the title of an episode eventually.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But Sportive Nymphs we for a while just referred to as Sport.
To the point where I forget that it has a different name.
The other one that's like that is I actually forgot the real name and I was about to say the one that's not real. Spiral Sage in my head is still Second Citadel Monster Court.
Yes. Oh yeah, we did.
Yeah, we called that. Yeah, the whole time we were scheduling, it was all right. We gotta for Monster Court. Everybody, any tips for a person who would like to start their own fiction podcast in a country where those are not very popular?
Well, I mean, the good thing is you're putting it online, so you're not really beholden to that.
But if your question, I wonder then if the question is about production, like getting other people on board.
Right.
Yeah.
It's so hard to give advice about this. I always feel bad because it's like
well,
I feel like
we had a very specific, just a sort of happenstance path.
Yeah, like
right?
especially because we didn't intend to. Like that's the difference between us and someone starting now is we didn't mean to start a podcast, so we can't say, "Oh, do what we did."
Oh, just like stumble into getting your friends to record one episode of a thing and then trick them into
and then
doing
don't
it for
let
3
them
years.
stop. Like that won't. Don't.
Yeah, don't.
It puts a lot of strain on.
She's scary.
But
so
that
scary.
said, we are the antithesis of this, but I would say, if you don't have a lot of other people to collaborate with, I mean, there are a lot of great single voice fiction
Yeah.
podcast, you know?
One thing that we do, all three of us always say, is if you can't hide it, feature it.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
that
yeah,
is
it's like...
my theater directing mantra.
And it's... And, like, we use it all the time in writing, too.
Yeah.
And, like, we used it in the live show and whatever. And, like... So that's the same thing, you know, even if it is just you,
Right.
then you want to use that as your inspiration, right? You know, it's like,
Right.
what kind of story could be really interestingly told with just one person?
Right. That actually benefits from having this
Right.
restriction.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
my big thing is always just make it. Like, if you're spending forever, like, trying to line everything up so that it's perfect, it's never going to get made. And on top of that, if you started making it tomorrow, even, you know, knowing that like all the stuff you write down tomorrow won't be in the final draft, it doesn't matter. You got the practice in. I think about all of my writing projects that have never seen the light of day that I spent like years on, but I can still track backwards from things that are happening in this show now. Like, oh, I practiced that skill back into this project,
Right.
I only know how to do this because I tried it for something nobody will ever see for like 2 years straight.
Just do it is such great advice, and it's always so annoying, though.
I
Like,
know.
every single time you say it,
Oh,
I'm
it's
like,
the advice I always need to hear, yeah. Yeah.
stop. But he's right.
What is Nureyev's skincare routine?
So,
Behind the camera, Ryan just did a...
one thing I will say is I do feel like he waxes...
Poetic?
Just fully.
That, I hate to say that feels right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, alright. Moving on. Who is the cutest character in your opinions?
Rita.
Well, that was easy.
Yeah, that's sort of the canon answer. Right?
Rita and Juno, Angela and Second Citadel. Done.
I've lost my place, so I'm just going to start asking some questions from somewhere here. Does Kevin love the car or the pigs more?
Oh. Oh no.
Whoever asked that
Who
has
are
got
you?
Kevin's number.
Who are you?
Get the
What do
pigs.
you know?
Hang on. They don't need to hear this. Get the pigs in the car. And then we're talking. I like the car more. Listen,
Really?
I do. I love Porcus and Trotter. I miss them so much. And I know I'll have other pigs someday. I'll have other pigs to look forward to. But I would never want to replace the Ruby 7.
Yeah.
How well can the thief gang cook?
Like, collectively?
Let's rank them right now.
I'm ready.
Okay. So we know that Juno is a decent...
Juno's a decent cook.
Well, in his own estimation.
We know that Jet can make breakfast because he was doing it
Yes.
at the end of Monsters Reflection.
Yes, we do know that. I'd be worried about
I
Rita.
have to imagine Jet is the best cook,
I think so.
right?
Yeah. Vespa might be a good...
Yeah.
I can
Yeah,
actually imagine her
yeah,
being
yeah.
a good cook.
Vespa's,
Maybe a little inconsistent.
Vespa's a really good cook, but like you have to stay very far away from the kitchen while she's cooking.
Sure.
Because she's an angry chef.
She's an angry everything.
Yeah.
And I feel like... Oh. Buddy doesn't
But he doesn't.
eat food.
But he doesn't eat food. That's true. That's all we know about her diet.
Right.
But he doesn't eat food.
And Juno's fine, and I feel like Rita's maybe very good at cooking what she cooks, but the question is, like, do you want
If you need someone,
approach that?
if you need someone to boil up some salmon crunchy ramen, just oof.
Yeah.
She
Now,
knows exactly
we haven't
the
talked
temperature
about
every time.
Nureyev.
Oh, he's terrible. He's
You
so bad.
are not the writer, so as we've discussed earlier, so
I don't know if Nureyev remembers the last time that he ate something that was not at a
Right, he
restaurant.
does a lot
and
of
delivered it.
takeout.
Yeah, but he's never had to like cook something as part of an undercover situation.
No, because it would take way longer to learn how to
Alright,
cook
yeah,
than
yeah.
it would
No,
to
I
make
do
a
think he's
fake
good
meal.
at like less useful things like tea ceremony.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll give you that. Yeah. What is the oddest direct piece of direction you have given to the voice actors? I'm sure it's a 7-way tie.
Yeah.
Just pick one you really enjoyed.
I actually don't know, though. Like, I can't think of any. A lot of times, though, my directions, I feel like, are all, like, I'll be like, do it, like, and then I'll do something with my elbows.
Yeah.
That's not untrue.
Yeah.
That's true.
And then, but I don't mean do something with your elbows. Like, I mean
Right.
express this thing with my elbows with your voice.
Yes.
Right.
And we've all learned to understand what
Yeah,
that
they
means.
just
Yeah.
do. And
Yeah.
It's great.
Do normal lizards exist in the world of the Second Citadel? And if so, can Lord Aram communicate with them?
Yes, they exist. No, Aram can't.
Can you imagine if there were just, like, tiny little humans that just, like, went around and didn't actually have, like, human brain? Like, that's what it would be to him.
No, because he's not. Also, I feel like we all forgot this at some point, but dude ain't a lizard. Lizard ain't got 4 arms.
Yeah, I know, but he's, like, largely
Lizard-esque,
lizard-looking.
yeah.
I get, whenever I have Rilla describe him, he's like, he has some lizard and some insect.
Alright.
Okay. In my headcanon.
Do you ever read fan fiction? And if so, have you ever had a moment of, I wish I'd come up with that?
Used to read a little bit very early on, like when we first developed like a community on Tumblr, but not for a very long time.
I live in fear of that reaction, so I don't read any of it.
I also don't read any of it, but
Yeah.
I also never read fan fiction like as a person. Actually, no, embarrassing and extremely scathing fact about me. The only fan fiction I've ever read was an imagined 8th season of The West Wing. Because everything I do is hyper predictable.
Oh, wow.
Moving on. This person says that they've always pictured her as a parrot, but what sort of bird do you imagine Pix to be? A dove, a blue jay, albatross, perhaps?
I actually think, in my head, more of dove.
Oh, it's funny because I was thinking something. I guess I was thinking kind of hawk or falcon egg.
I mean, same. But we talked about how it's
Right,
it's,
this like
it's
very bizarre.
Marge,
specific-
who plays that role, also played
Hawk
Hawk
Hackett,
Hackett
so
in
you're
Long
like,
Way Home.
Okay,
Yeah,
I guess she
sort of
plays
like
birds.
Only Hawk adjacent.
But she makes that cooing noise that sounds like a dove.
Yeah.
To me.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Right.
In my head, she's blue. I don't have a reason for it, but it's true.
Okay, sure.
Okay, interesting. How much overlap creatively is there between working on the podcast and working in theater? In terms of the skills and the process, I imagine.
That's really interesting. Well, I mean, again, like, didn't go into this knowing that it was going to be a podcast, and like all of my experience and your experience and like the rest of our actors was just from theater. And then Kevin had never done theater, you know, he just had written novels.
When we were prepping for the live show, like, it became very clear to me, like...
Yeah, Kevin was like, what is going on?
Yep, Noah at one point said places, and I just looked at him like...
Why is Noah saying this noun?
Yeah, that? My place is here where I'm sitting.
Right, and we'd all be like, oh, thank you, 5, and he'd be like, what?
What is this cult I entered? Yeah.
Right.
Pardon me for laughing. I just got to a bit of the chat. Clearly it was when we were talking about an array of waxing. And so people perhaps decided that you meant also on the top of his
That's
Wigs.
awesome.
Wigs.
That's awesome.
Ooh, okay, that took me out. Speaking of, will there be another live show?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
there will.
Later this year, I feel confident in saying.
Yes.
That's that. I'm just scrolling through so much people talking about baldness. What does Buddy eat? 3 question marks.
I don't know. I mean,
Don't know.
are you gonna ask her?
Question for Noah. That's me. How hard was it singing in the Aram voice? Reasonably. I mean, basically what I did was not worry about doing it well, or or like making. I literally just got up on that mic, like I was like, I can't.
Right. Projected.
I was sort of singing like it was sort of singing like this, and like that was how it had to be. Which is probably, I mean, when I listen to it, I can't even really hear myself, probably for that reason. We have a handful of questions about Rita's life before she met Juno.
Mm.
I don't know if there's any world building there we want to tease, but
Chaos.
okay,
Yeah.
that sounds right.
I feel like the one thing we know about her is about her mom.
Yeah, her mom's like an anarchist.
Right. Like fresh baked bomb, just like mom used to make, is I think a line.
Something
in,
like that.
A Rita minute.
Yeah, and then I always felt really confident that she has a sister.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think
God, you haven't talked about that since like season 1.
Yeah, I know. I really wanted to do a bonus episode
right.
with Rita's sister.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people headcanon Sir Angelo and or Telfrin as autistic. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I'll say that we have not done that intentionally. I think that in terms of headcanons, like, you can do what you want, and I think that you can take how characters behave as evidence for what's going on inside them as much as you want. That is something that I would want to do a lot more research on. Also, just in terms of what do our autistic fans want to see? What kinds of heroes do they want? And without having done that research, I'm very reticent to say that because I don't know the field.
Well, you want to do it intentionally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's something that we've talked about, and it's something that we've thought about, and the research still needs to happen, I think.
Yeah. So as far as those characters go, it sounds like the answer is sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you
if you like.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Let's see here. I guess I've reached near the bottom of the chat, but I'm sure by skipping a million things. Let's see. How did Damien kiss the lizard? Please do not demonstrate.
No.
Don't have a lizard.
Yeah. So if this is the lizard,
yeah.
Yeah.
you just kissed them.
Do monsters have gender?
That's a good question. I mean, especially because we do say Lord Aram, and we say he.
Right.
Hey, is Lord his name? I've been stuck on this for a while.
No.
Do monsters have first and last names?
No, I don't think Aram's his last name.
I see. Lord Aram would be his entire
Right.
name.
Like, I know Rilla will never say Lord because
Right.
No.
Yeah.
But is Lord his name?
No, it's not. Because that's part of it. Is he's royalty.
That's true. Yeah. So yeah, I think that because monsters are so they're so individual, monsters that want gender have gender. And monsters that don't just don't. Yeah.
Yeah. That feels in keeping.
Yeah.
Which probably means there are small monster societies that just have no concept of gender, and
Sure.
they're cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a question I have a feeling we won't answer. Is Franny real?
Is Franny real?
So
Otherwise-
the thing is, Juno's not real.
Oh my, yeah.
Rita's not real.
I'm so
Just
sorry.
To be clear.
I don't blame you for asking the question. I should have known better than to open this can of worms. Let's see. We learned a bit about the edges of the world, the Terminus, and the Frost Mountains this last season. And we learn more about the other edges and regions of the Second Citadel world next season.
We have already learned about the western edge of the world, actually. So if you can go back and check out the old Patreon words,
Did we catch any of those words?
If you can go back and check out the old Patreon rewards, travelers, if you have either access to the script of Sport of Nymphs, or I don't remember what tier it was at, but we did have a recording of it when Sir Damien does the poem, The Battle at World's End. He very specifically describes the western edge of the world. And I feel pretty confident in saying that nobody knows what the eastern edge of the world looks like, for obvious reasons.
We definitely have thought and talked a lot about world building in Second Citadel, and it will be something that we continue to explore.
Yeah, I think maybe even in a bigger way than we did last season.
Yeah.
Here's a sort of broad question. How much gayer is Season 3 going to be? Gay squared? Gay cubed?
Gays don't do math, so...
Wow.
Sidestepped. Well
Tell
done.
them.
That said, we're really pushing it, right?
Uh-huh.
We're pretty gay already
Right.
as a season of media. Cubed might be a bit much.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got. Will we ever know Rita's last name?
No, are you going to read a question? Or?
Noted. Let's see. Okay. What is your favorite place to eat around Boston? Look, the people want to know.
Oh,
Sophie.
Sofra.
Because it sounds like her.
Yeah, Kate calls me Sofra because of it, but it's a bakery cafe that's nearby, and I eat there every Saturday morning, and if I don't, I get cranky, or sometimes other days, often other days.
I go to Boston Burger Company, and I get the King, which
So
is a
good.
burger that has peanut butter, fried bananas, bacon. It's good, and then you eat it. And a beef burger also. It's a burger. It's good. Boston Burger Company. Boston Burger
Are
Company.
they sponsored?
Are we-
us?
Oh, Lord. What am I doing? Okay. Let's see here. How many times do you think you've re-listened to previous episodes while writing or creating new ones?
A lot.
Yeah, a lot.
A lot.
Mhm.
Both for reference and just to like my favorite ones.
What I will do a lot is if there's a new character whose voice I really want to get right. And actually, this is super helpful. Thank you, listener, for helping us out with this. Because, as we go back and I need to refigure out Buddy's voice, I'm realizing I should probably listen to Time Gone By a few times. Because, when we were way back when Ramses was first introduced, I would listen to his speech at the beginning of Kitty Cat Caper and his conversation with Juno at the end of Kitty Cat Caper over and over and over again in order to get the voice down when I was trying to write, lesson learned.
How mad was Jet to see Peter with the ruby?
Very.
Okay. So Narev was sitting on the car. That's not cool.
How was he sitting?
Well, I would imagine that sort of his primary leg joints
So we're
would be raised,
so we're
and
and then what?
sort of, but his in order to balance that, obviously his gluteal region would have to be.
I can't believe how much time we're wasting
Extended.
on this. I'm going to move on. What was a piece of sound design that was especially challenging to create?
Oh, that's a really good question. Can you remember anything that ruined my life?
Yeah. Every crowd ever, but also a lot of the Theosol stuff.
Yeah, that was tough. The damselfly in Sport of Nymphs was deeply upsetting to me. Because I kind of knew I wanted it to sound sort of like a helicopter, but also like a bug, and it was killing me to
Yeah.
figure out like how it was going to sound like it was, diving and weaving and all that stuff. And then one that I'm actually not satisfied with was in Battle at World's End. Like I'm still not happy about when they defeat the fear bug and like they send it tumbling off, because it's like when things go falling, they don't make a noise.
Right,
and that
especially when they
really-
fall into nothing.
Right, and that like really stumped me. So like you can't have a crashing noise because there specifically isn't one, and so like I did my best, but it was very frustrating to me, and I honestly don't feel like it was super clear in the sound design in the end what was happening. Yeah, that was really tough.
If you could have any famous actor guest star on the Penumbra, who would it be?
We've talked about Alan Cumming.
Yeah, that is what I was gonna say.
Oh man.
I feel like he might be random enough to do it. You know how he'll just like do random stuff.
It's true.
That like maybe if you came at him at the right time.
Yeah.
Suitably gay icon. Well, queer icon because he's bi.
Icon.
Biconique. Yeah.
Alan Cumming, Gillian Anderson also.
Oh man.
Oh.
100%.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Are we going to hear more about Diamond next season?
Maybe.
I realize I asked all these questions about next season. Your answer rightfully can be shut up. Wait for the season.
my answer to that is probably because we're obviously not
And I haven't dropped that thread.
right. Juno's not done. Like he's still got other stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, we'll learn more about Juno, and that seems like a big area to mine.
Let's see here. Are Sir Caroline and Kuan Yi in an open relationship?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, Sir Caroline wasn't doing anything shady and Lady of like.
Great. Thank you for that.
Great.
Yes, open relationship.
This one is mostly directed at Sophie. What is the part of the podcast you cried most at?
That's so funny.
Again. Yeah, so we've had one aggressive drag of each of you so far.
Bless. I mean, I cried a lot about the end of Soul of the People. Because, like, that was coming for such a long time. And I also always cry a lot about in Promised Land, I think it's part 2, when Juno decides he is too angry to die. Yeah, and like the music kicks in. Yeah, I love that.
You can answer as well if you want.
I cry. Not so much on re-listens, but when I was writing it and when I was listening to it the first couple times, I cried like a baby in like the last couple scenes before you find out that Ramses is dead. So like when Juno is like looking at that statue of Andromeda and sees just the extent to which Ramses never got her at all, and it's just crushing for everybody.
Yeah.
That absolutely wrecks me.
Interesting. How do people in the Juniverse automatically know people's pronouns?
That's a good question, and
I don't know.
we don't have a good answer. Because that's just part of what makes it a utopia, like...
It's the kind of world you wanted to tell a story in.
Right. It's just part of the fabric of it, and like, if we think too much about the explanation of it, it's...
Right. My brother's favorite answer to questions like this, especially in sci-fi, is they figured it out. Which I absolutely love. And also, like, it gets to a point where, like, we can't think of an easy one, but it doesn't mean that doesn't exist. It just means that we're two people, right? And I feel like what we do believe is that we are confident in a future in which somebody finds a solution to that.
A Penumbra comic book, is that a thing that you would ever be interested in making?
Yeah, if we found a way to do it. Totally.
this question is basically how much, to what degree have future things been fleshed out? Do you know, do you know what happens sort of granularly, or do you know just sort of general sort of points along the way?
A little bit of both.
Yeah.
We know general points along the way, like in terms of the Juno series. Like
Yeah, we now know the rest of the Juno series.
We know the rest of the general points.
That's a really scary thing you just said out loud to everyone.
Yep.
That you know what happens until the end of the Juno series,
Yes.
because I think we're all aware of the concept of a finite amount of time and energy in the world, but
right.
Yeah.
The good news is it's not tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Let's see. Is most food on Mars replicated? Cricket pad thai was mentioned. Was Juno living in a society of bug eaters?
Yeah.
Not exclusively bugs, but
Sure.
And
but
also, I think just cultures have like meshed so much by then that honestly, even what they call pad thai, I bet doesn't look anything like pad thai. And what they call a hamburger, you probably eat with a utensil we've never seen before. Like it's probably unrecognizable, I guess. I'm
going to take just a few more questions because we've been here for a little bit now. And I don't know, I've got to go eat dinner. That's where I'm at. So if you've got any final questions, get them in right now. I know I may have skipped a bunch, and I just don't have the time to take everyone's, which I apologize for. But I'll take a few more questions. I'll ask maybe one or two more of my questions, and then we will call it a day. Cool.
Good.
Sound good? Let's see. This is a question we've touched on in other sort of feedback things. So basically, what are some of your primary influences in terms of media for your creative process, or your general favorite media? I would direct folks to some of the other bonus stuff that we've done.
And any other Q&As.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah. But
one influence I recently realized is huge with me. One very specific piece of media that somehow I keep coming back to is Spy Kids. Yep.
I don't not see that. Yeah.
It's also like very off-brand for me.
Yeah.
I realize.
Well, except for the Alan Cumming of it all.
Yes, very true.
Yeah.
Very true. But it is sort of like not the aesthetic that I usually go for.
Right.
But for some reason,
It rang true.
Yeah.
What has surprised you most about the growing fan base?
The growing.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's wild, y'all. There are a lot of you, and it's weird.
Yeah. And also just like how nice people are to each other and to us, and like, it's hard not to, I think, as a creator, and like when you get so much feedback all the time, like I think we become a little bit jaded and we become a little bit cranky, and I think I sort of see that with most creators. Like, it's really hard when you just get that amount of feedback not to become that way, and definitely I think we're guilty of that, and definitely we're always salty at times, but like on the whole, really the fandom is so kind to us. Like occasionally we get criticism and stuff that hurts, but mostly people are so nice, and people are really good to each other, and also like really respectful,
right?
And stuff like not spoiling each other and all of that. Like, people are just so across the board so good.
And I know when I've had the opportunity to meet fans in person, like I've enjoyed every single conversation I've had with a fan, and like I don't specifically just like talking, so that was a huge surprise for me, right? I was worried I was going to be able to do it. Honestly, it's me, not you. But I've honestly loved every conversation I've had with you all. You're so nice.
Yeah.
Thank goodness, really.
I know.
Could have gotten a bunch of jerks as our fan base. Yeah. So, who would you cast as Nureyev in a live-action adaptation? And they suggested someone, but I'm not going to say it, so I don't want to influence your.
I wasn't actually pointing at you, but like. You're the director. I
Yeah.
never knew this.
Eugene Lee Yang.
Oh,
Nice.
Yeah, who's gonna fight with me about that?
I did that.
No one
That
is
seems
gonna
real.
fight with
Yeah,
me.
that's
yeah,
good.
you're fired. Eugene is who we're getting.
All right. Let's see these last two. Are you weirded out by overly enthusiastic and long reactions to episodes, or is that cool?
When people have sent them my way, I love them. I love them so much. Please don't stop. Never stop.
No, it's cool. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
going to let you answer.
No, I didn't really understand what the context was, though. Like how are we receiving them? I guess.
Oh, I don't
Just like
know.
when we've seen them.
I just imagined, like,
Right, because it's like if
Having
somebody
them, I
posts
guess,
them
like-
somewhere, like, sure, that's your business. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
But yes, also it's nice when people.
Oh, totally, yeah.
no, it's lovely. And right, and like when people react in a forum that we have access to, it's nice to see that like we had an effect, you know, that
Yeah.
like we're not.
Sometimes we get really nice like iTunes reviews. And,
Yeah,
like, that
right,
is
yeah.
really lovely.
And where did it go? We have had guest stars from other audio dramas. Do we plan on or want to do something like that again?
Yeah,
Maybe.
absolutely.
Yeah. It's a little bit tough because something that's really important to me, and it doesn't always happen, but something that is important to me as a director is I really like to have actors act with each other.
In the room together, yeah.
Like as much as I can, and of course, as we talked about earlier, sometimes it doesn't happen. But I don't like to work in a way where people are recording remotely. I really like the authentic interaction, so like definitely open to it, but it's usually not.
It depends on the role. That's part of the reason
Yes.
that Promised Land fits so perfectly
Mhm.
for it.
Yes, it does depend on the role and like how the additional voices are coming.
Yeah. I've got just another question for you before we wrap up here. It actually relates to what we were saying earlier about if you can't hide it, feature it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I believe in so wholeheartedly. This idea of taking an obstacle and turning it into an opportunity.
Mhm.
I wonder if you can give any examples of that in this show, because I think that is a great way to give a sort of, a slightly behind the scenes look at like. It tears away the idea that like, I mean, I think you are brilliant geniuses who have planned this all out,
Yes.
but also it takes away that idea that you have to have everything like this
Right.
before you can
Because
even do
stuff
it.
just happens.
Flexible outlines.
Yeah, so
Same
I'm curious if you have any examples of that, because I think that is a really useful sort of peek behind the curtain.
I mean, actor availability is
It's
definitely
huge.
a thing.
Yeah.
And I think we've talked about before when Stefano decided to hike the Appalachian Trail.
As one does.
Right.
Yeah.
As he certainly does. And then we were like, oh, well, guess we can't have Mark for when we
Right.
wanted him. So, like, that totally changes, his arc.
And I think it made Mark's character arc. Like,
Yes.
before that, like, it was just going to be what he was going for, like, for just, like, bigger and more explosive and
Mhm.
etc. And I think that Stefano on his mountain adventure showed us the only way, which I'm really happy
And
with.
yeah, he like learned about taking a step out of the spotlight and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So that, and then like sometimes like when you follow a trajectory and then it like sort of paints you into a corner and then you realize you need to build something around that, and I think that Sportive Nymphs was a good example of that, because we had like reached a point with where the narratives were going that we were like, uh-oh, we just got all the boy characters together.
Yes.
And we can't have an episode that's just all men. That's awful. And so then we were like, okay, so let's make it about that and about women.
Mhm.
And then have like all the other characters be women, and that became the point of that episode. And if that hadn't occurred to us, it might have ended up feeling more like a filler episode, because it was just they needed to get from point A to point B.
Right.
Thank you. I love hearing about things like that because I suffer from the affliction you were talking about earlier of like wanting everything to work before you really leap into something, and it helps me, I know, to hear that in my creative endeavors, and
sometimes you just have to embrace it, and just be like, okay, this is the situation we're working
Right.
with now, and like just genuinely, openly view that as an opportunity. And it really forces you to be more creative, and it keeps you on your toes, and it comes out so much better than if everything had panned out the way you wanted it to.
By the time you hear the final product, like that, I know because I still feel this like when I read great books and when I watch great movies, right? It feels like the whole thing, especially great books, the whole thing just feels like it's spooled out all in one go, all by itself. But like it's a patchwork thing.
That's
right?
the illusion.
Exactly. The actual process of making anything is really just nonstop like chaos. It is constantly seeing that you're surrounded by fires and knowing that you can only put out like 3/4 of them right now. And once as you adjust to that, you have a new landscape to deal with.
And I really think that like I've been thinking about this a lot, that I feel like making art is like doing a magic trick.
Mm-hmm.
It is making magic, and it's because you're creating the illusion that something exists that doesn't exist, right? And I was poking fun a little bit earlier about like this isn't real, but the fact is that's the illusion we've created, right? Is that it's real, and you don't see everything just off screen, and you don't see me like moving things around in Audacity, and that 5 of these people were never in the same place at the same time, because that is the illusion, and that's what making art is to make you think that there's a whole universe there, and there was just us in this room, reading some words off of our iPhones.
Yeah.
I think that is a beautiful sentiment to end on. Thank you all so much for joining us for this. This was a delight. Obviously, a sort of foray into something we hadn't done before.
Yes,
So I'm glad it worked so well. I want to thank Ryan Meyer behind the camera. He's waving. You can't see it.
Ryan.
Thanks!
Okay.
You can hear that.
There he is.
And I want to thank Sophie and Kevin for sitting down and answering all these questions.
Thank you.
Great
host.
I want to thank you all for all of your great questions, from the sublime to the ridiculous. Real quick, I want to again thank all of our patrons for supporting us, because we quite literally could not do what we're doing without you. I can't say enough about how much of an effect you're having on our ability to make this art. And can plug the Patreon for anyone who's listening to this at a later date and is not currently donating.
There's fun rewards.
Should we just say, do it? Is there anything else we should
Yeah,
say?
go-
Come give us money.
Yeah, because this is going to end up on the main episode feed as audio in a little while. Go to patreon.com/the Penumbra Podcast. You can get episodes early at the $4 and up tier. You can get episode production scripts with weird behind the scenes stuff at $7.
They are weird.
They're very silly.
You can get commentaries and all kinds of weird bonus stuff
Also
at
very
$10
silly.
and up, right? And it's because of contributors like that, as Noah said, that we can keep making the show and make it everything we want to be. We dream big. It's a problem.
It's working so far.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if I imagine that you may follow us on social media already. If you don't, follow us on Facebook, The Penumbra Podcast. Follow us on Tumblr, The Penumbra Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at The Penumbra Pod. Also, follow us on Twitter
we're
individually at Vibert Kevin,
He can't prepare.
at Sophie Kaner, at The Noah Symes, because I'm annoying. Yeah, what are you doing if you're not? Come on, more of this, but
cute.
Textually. Thank you so much. It's been a delight. Have a great evening, morning, afternoon, or night.
Bye.